This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bikeworks HMB, your one-stop shop for bike service, sales, and rentals in Half Moon Bay, California. Whether you're on the mountain, road, or low on battery, Bikeworks HMB has your back. So come on down to 520 Kelly Street and come talk some shop with the boys. All right, I'm GT. Peace out. Enjoy this episode of the podcast. Welcome back to the Between Shifts podcast. I'm Gavin.
I'm Ian.
I'm Matt.
Today's guest is a lifelong surfer, a powerhouse businessman, and a man I am yet to beat at cornhole, and someone who genuinely gives a damn about his community. From quantum physics to owning a restaurant or making real estate flips, he does it all. Please welcome Matt Haugen.
Nice, dude. Thanks for coming.
This has been a long time coming here, this one. I could take these off.
Dude, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're going to start out kind of early. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and what kind of kid you were?
Sure. Anyways, I just realized you got a Tom Selleck vibe going.
Do I?
Yeah, you know Tom Selleck? Got the Hawaiian shirt and the...
Is it good? Is that a good vibe?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Tom Selleck, movie star, yeah.
In his heyday, I'm dating myself a little bit here. He drove a Ferrari. That's good.
Yeah.
Childhood. All right, so, I mean, childhood's a long time, so I can...
yeah, kind of start...
kind of give you like the high points, the highlights. So I was raised by a single mom mostly. She had me when she was 19, so I had a young mom.
Okay.
Which was, from what I remember of my early years, fun.
It had to have been fun, yeah.
I had a big Dutch family, so I was around them a lot. And my mom got married to my dad when she was a high school sweetheart when she was, I think, 20. And then she got divorced, and then she got married to him again.
Oh.
She was like 22.
Damn.
And then got divorced again at 23. And so from like probably 3 or 4 years till about 6 or 7 years, it was just me and my mom, and we were living with family. We lived in Ventura. We lived with my aunt. We lived everywhere. We lived in San Carlos and Belmont and Burlingame, and she was a waitress. And
Your mom
was.
Wow.
And just trying to make ends meet, living with various family members. And if I'm thinking about that lifestyle for a child now, being a parent myself, I'd be like, "Ooh, that's tough." It might be difficult on a family, but if I'm remembering my experience in that lifestyle as a young person, it's really positive. I feel like it was a fun time of my life, and I was always around various people, and I don't see that single parent kind of dynamic being negative at all, or even not having like a home that we owned and that we lived in, and a sort of a long-term environment being a specific advantage. In fact, it wasn't until that my mom married my stepdad and we built a house in Montana, and I think that was like in '83. And I moved here in 6th grade. I'd never spent a full school year anywhere.
Okay.
And like you might, that might be seen as tough now. Like, God, you're jerking your kids out of school and they're going to another one. They're making new friends. But in retrospect, I don't see it as, if anything, it's kind of forced me to build social skills because I was meeting new friends all the time. And I always remember going to new school, and I'd be like, I don't know anybody. My mom would be like, get out of the house or I'm putting you to work.
That's good.
Like, get out, do something, or I'm going to make you do chores. And so in a loving way. And I just remember like getting out of the house and just walking around until you see some kids and you make some friends. And that was kind of my early childhood.
Yeah. So like that type of, not necessarily instability, but like the whole moving around part of your childhood.
Yeah.
Like you kind of just answered this question a little bit ago, but do you feel like that moving around and having like your mom kick you out of the house to go meet new people, you think that helps you in today's world, like running your business, you're not afraid to go up to anybody. I know that about you, and go talk and make a new friend or start a conversation with somebody.
Well, first thing, if my mom sees it, she's going to be angry that I told people that she kicked me out of the house. And she didn't really, but it was just one of those, that's just, kids shouldn't be sitting around the house all day. They should be out throwing rocks.
It's a healthy kick out.
Exactly. It's a healthy bikes and meeting friends and so on and so forth. 100%. I think that's, listen, there's this debate of nature versus nurture, and to what extent is each of these things impactful on the human being that you end up becoming as an adult? And certainly, nature is some component of that. I mean, there's personality traits that you probably share with your parents, and some of that was probably passed on genetically. But most of the person you become, in my opinion, is more of a nurture perspective, meaning it's a function of the environment you were raised in. And despite being bouncing around the state with a single mom for a few years, I was loved. I was in a supportive environment. I had family around all the time. And yeah, I guess to answer your question, that helped me probably lean into some developing some social skills, which helped me in my lifestyle now.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said Dutch. Your family's originally from Holland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. Then you originally told us they had moved to Michigan, working in the auto industry.
My grandfather, as a young man, was somebody that I think he was a learning mechanic in Holland, and he was helping the Allied forces against the Germany, essentially, in World War II. And there was a bill that when the war was done and we won, there was a bill passed by the government at that time, by the president at that time, that allowed people that were helpful to the U.S. effort in Europe to come to the United States, and the United States government would pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
So because he was somebody that kind of helped the U.S. Military in German-occupied Holland, he got to bring his family here. So they came over here on a boat. They went to Ellis Island. My mom was 4. And from there, they went to Michigan, automotive industry. He had some mechanical skills and started in the automotive industry space there, and then moved to San Francisco, and they had a bike shop.
Oh, no kidding.
Funny, 'cause
No
we're
way.
at a bike shop now. It was right at basically the corner of the Great Highway, Ocean Beach,
Yeah.
and Lincoln.
Oh, wow.
So it
Yeah.
faced the park, and they built their life. And I guess we don't want to get political at all, but it's worth saying that my family is a family of immigrants, and these are people that got here looking for a better life, and they created a better life, and they have created generations of people that add value to this country, and both financially and in other ways. And so I think that's kind of a good model to look at and for us not to forget that people come here looking for a better life, and those people that come here, a lot of those people end up providing value to our communities and our country.
Yeah. Obviously, it was beneficial for your grandfather to move here and work in the auto industry. Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Did your family have any issues when they moved here? Do you know what the last name? Because a lot of the times when immigrants were coming into town, they would change. Like our last name was Tertiara, like the Azore Island, but they changed it to Teixeira, I'm pretty sure, when we came here, because it was just, they were trying to move so quick, and you hear it a lot with like PJ's family as well.
Yeah.
PJ's family had I'm pretty sure it was PJ. They had a certain last name. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, it was Monaco.
Yeah, Monaco, and they changed it to Monica, and now they're stuck with it.
So I got a massage yesterday at the wellness spa, and the ladies, said, "I'm Angela." I'm like, "Your name's not Angela, right?" She's like, "Oh no, I have a real name, but this is my American name." So, on my dad's side, my great grandfather is Norwegian, and the name should be pronounced Haugen. And if you look at it, it's Haug.
Yeah.
He changed it to Haugen, the pronunciation, because it's more American.
Gotcha.
Which is funny because you don't think of different countries, people from different countries moving here that are white Anglo being discriminated against. Like, why would somebody, but I guess it was the case, and he felt that being a name that's pronounced Hogan would make him fit in more.
Yeah.
On my mom's side, it was Kohlhoven, and that's the name that still runs on the men's side of that family, and they didn't change that at all.
Wow.
And keep in mind, there was a lot of people coming from Europe at that time, and where they landed in Michigan was there was a lot of Dutch immigrants that moved there, so they had a pretty deep Dutch community. That they were integrated with right out the bat.
Nice. That's pretty killer.
Do you still have a lot of that Dutch family around you?
We do.
Yeah.
We have it around us. Unfortunately, it is what it is. But every subsequent generation, you lose a little bit of that
influence.
That
culture.
I'm not speaking Dutch like as much as my mom is, and my kids don't speak any Dutch. But we do have a a lot of the, I guess the more family principles of sort of the Dutch culture still persist in our families.
Yeah.
We always take care of our family, big family dinners, families get together for the holidays. A lot of those sort of founding, I guess, cultural principles still persist.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys do too in your family, but we definitely do that with like the Japanese culture. And well, I don't speak any Japanese, but we still have like the kind of same values, and we eat rice all the time. It's
we eat fava beans all the time.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No, we just it's honestly kind of, it's sad. Like, I want to get more in touch with my roots. I've been on a really weird history buff lately. I forced Nico to come with me to go to the Johnston house one time, because I was like, okay, so in my family tree, on my mom and my dad's side, they both came from the same island in Portugal, from the Azores, Terceira Island.
Yeah.
And they came here, and they both lived in the Johnson house. And the story that I've always heard is that they lived there at the same time, so they knew each other, the two families. Yeah. So then all of a sudden, I don't know what it was in me, but I got on this huge history buff, and I was like, Nico, will you come to the Johnson house with me? He's like, what? Why? That's so weird. Why do you want to do that? I talked him into it. We go there, and it's like killer. It's open the third Saturday of every month, whatever. Going actually next weekend again with my grandparents, because it was so cool.
Killer.
But they have these tour guides, and Nico and I just started talking to the tour guide and explaining. She started asking about our family histories.
And you told me you live there?
Yeah, I told the story that I have heard most of my life, and she's like, that is so amazing.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, I wonder which room it was. Yeah.
She's going to change her door, yeah.
And I don't know if it's come up in this forum before, but if you talk to 5 people in this town, 3 of them are probably blood related to your family.
That's pretty fair.
Everybody's a cousin.
Yeah.
My brother's wife is a couson.
Technically, you're my cousin now.
I'm technically. I see the resemblance.
Yeah.
So, I don't think there's many families as sort of integrated in the community as so.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of going to take it back to what you were talking about with the whole moving around part of your younger life. And I was just curious, because when I initially read that, I wanted to know if you still had friends from moving around at that point in time that you still talk to this day.
You know what? When the only friend that I have still was when I was probably 11, 10, when I moved to Burlingame, and we moved to Burlingame while we were building our house here. So I was there for half of 5th grade and half of 6th grade.
Okay.
Basically, that's how it was. It was like I said, never more than 1 year in school. And that friend I'm still friends with. We went to college together. He was in my wedding, my first one. But before 10, if you're only in a place for a year, and you're 9, 8, and 7, 6 years old, it's probably tough to kind of forge relationships as an 8-year-old living in a community for 8 months that are going to persist as a 51-year-old.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Most of my friends that I would say I've had for 20 plus years are either from this community or for people I met in college.
For sure. Where did your love for surfing come into play in your younger life?
It's a good question. So when I moved here, I was pissed because by the time I was in 5th and 6th grade, we were living in Burlingame, and I met some friends. By that time, I didn't want to move around anymore. It was kind of like, we've done this, it's been great, but now I want to hang out in the community and make friends and kind of not be jerked out of school in the middle of the year and move to another school. So when we came out here, I was like, this sucks. And we were building our house, and I remember coming over 92 every day because I was the guy that pick up cans. The guys were drinking sodas on the job, and I'd be the guy to stop cans and pick it up because it was, kind of the gopher, or drag branches to the fire pit that we were cutting trees down to build the house. And I just remember going over the hill every day. And when we get to the cemetery, it just would be fog. And I was like, the fuck is this place?
Yeah.
Why are we moving here?
Yeah.
And I was kind of bummed. But within maybe the first couple months of living here, probably within the first couple weeks, I met my best friend to this day is John Lowings. And
great guy.
Another great guy, integrated deeply in this community. And he introduced me to surfing. He had been surfing for a couple of years. He lived here and lived in Australia. And it's funny because a couple months after that, I never looked back. Like that was what really integrated me into feeling good about living in this new community, which was a new school, meeting new people, and not knowing anybody. Surfing was kind of what grounded me here.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how much it would persist in my life through adolescence and adulthood as I do now, but it has, and I'm really grateful for that because it gets me out in the environment, it keeps me healthy, it's taken me around the world.
Yeah.
And it's a sport you can do if you stay healthy into your 80s, and you can't say that about many sports.
And I feel like that it's a really good point that we shouldn't overlook, especially in our community, is the fact that action sports, a sport like surfing, a sport like mountain biking, any type of action sport where other people that you wouldn't normally meet are doing, I feel like that's a great way to feel more grounded in the community.
100%.
Because you meet random ass people. I'll be riding on my bike and I'll come across somebody new and I talk to him at the top. I'm like, this guy's really cool. What's your name? Oh, Dimitri. Oh, Dimitri, cool. You got bees. You got the,
Or sometimes you don't even know their name. So my wife will be like, probably know so-and-so because he surfs, and I won't know his name. She'll be like, it's, his name's whatever, Bob Smith. I'll be like, I don't know that guy. I don't recognize him. But when I see him, I'm like, oh yeah. And so you build this sort of community of people that you see, whatever, once, twice a week for a half hour here, an hour there, and you chit chat in a lineup, and you have this sort of kind of relationship that only exists in that environment.
Yeah.
And it's communal and it's cool, and there's probably not many sports like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Getting to know people without even getting to know their names.
And actually different generations. I just my one of my bonus kids is a water dog, and he's on the surf team, and we recently went to Camp Pendleton in San Diego, which is a naval base.
Yep.
And somebody affiliated with the surf team is a retired colonel, super killer guy, and he pulled some strings, and we're allowed to camp like on the beach, which is right in front of basically lower trestles, arguably the best waves on the West Coast. There's like 300 yards to the north, and there's a great wave out front. And we camped there for a week, and there's all these different generations of people. Like there's a woman, Carrie, who I don't know her at all outside of surfing, but I know her for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's like we have these snippets of where we shed. I see her in the parking lot. How's it going, Carrie? Got a good new board. I saw you catch a good wave. And you get this kind of, it's hard for me to articulate it, but this
it's like
kind
a camaraderie.
It's like, and it's wholesome too.
Yeah.
Because they're there for the same reasons you are, even though they may be from totally different walks of life, socio-economically, culturally. There's a commonality that brings you there, and you share that, and there's a mutual respect as a result of that.
Definitely. I just really hope if there's somebody that's listening or watching this that feels stuck and they can't make friends it's hard to make friends in Half Moon Bay, get into something like an action sport or go throw cornhole even. Yeah. Do something to put yourself in an environment where others are there. And I promise you'll feel a lot more grounded, just like Matt was saying.
But don't pick up surfing because it's a lot of sharks. It's very dangerous. The locals are assholes.
And he doesn't want you to drop in on him.
No, that's another element. There's guys that, even me sometimes, they'll bitch and moan on like crowds.
Yeah.
And
sure.
It ain't like it used to be. And part of that is because I don't get as much good waves now as I was when I was in my 20s, mainly because I don't have 2 or 3 hours a day to go hunt it down.
Yeah.
Drive up the coast. But the reality is that mindset of people complaining about crowds, surf spots getting more crowded, or even for the coast side, people complaining about the traffic on the coast side, like long timers. I didn't like it used to be, and the traffic on the weekends. The reality is, you live in a place. Your life is somebody else's vacation.
Yeah.
If you don't want to live somewhere where other people will want to visit, go move to Fresno.
Yeah.
Like, be thankful that your life is another person's vacation. And the same thing with surfing. Even the most hardcore local guy learned to surf at some point, or he didn't know anybody. And
he was a kook.
And he was insecure, and he was a kook. And you have to respect that when other people are adventuring on the same sort of experience that you had when you were learning, that's part of just what surfing is. It's fun. And because it's fun, other people are going to want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
No one wants to vacation in Fresno, apparently.
No. Sorry, I hope there's nobody from Fresno here. Or actually, I should say maybe Bakersfield.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Stock-
way better.
Stockton.
Fresno is
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Stockton,
Well,
there you
real
go.
quick, so you didn't play any other team sports growing up or anything like that, right?
No, I wasn't really good athletically speaking. I wasn't the star high school cocky, good-looking quarterback. Broke all the records here.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
We
I
can't
wasn't
all
good
be.
looking.
No,
You grew into that?
I just wasn't. I didn't start really growing, didn't hit puberty till late in high school, so I was half the size of everybody else. I didn't really have a lot of sort of team sport, athletic ability, but surfing is something I just picked up, and yeah, I learned to be good at it because I did it a lot. But yeah, it wasn't really. I mean, I tried different team sports. I wasn't an area I excelled in.
Yeah. Now you're in the surfing community.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool community.
And I feel like you having the drive to go, let alone the drive to start a conversation with anybody,
Yeah.
right? We talked about that. But with surfing and action sports again in general, I think that the confidence that comes from really being on your own and knowing, like, especially surfing, if you get held a 2-wave hold down or something, and you're like, nobody's going to save me down here. I have to rely on myself. And I feel like that really translates over into you and how you operate with your businesses, is the fact that you carry yourself. You're a great team manager, but at the end of the day, you're really good at carrying yourself and being there for yourself. We've talked about this with like all types of action sports, but I just think I'm wondering what you have to say about that. If you think that translates into you running a business, or
So I think, first of all, who can hold their breath here for 30 seconds? Anybody, right?
yeah,
I can't even swim.
No, but you can.
he actually can't swim.
Really?
I thought he was joking at first.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Dave.
Yeah, we got to fix that.
Most people can probably hold their breath for a minute.
Yeah,
Right now. So
Yeah.
the longest that your heaviest beat down surfing, even if you're surfing decent sized waves, 20, 30 seconds, like a 2-wave hold down might be 30 seconds.
but it's a violent 30 seconds.
It's violent and you don't
Yeah.
have time to catch your breath. But the point is, if you have practice at it, you don't fight it, you let go, you
Mhm.
know that you're going to come to the surface, because when you're fighting it, anxiety comes up, you're stressed out, you're for oxygen,
Yeah.
probably. And it sounds silly, but just go with the flow.
For sure.
Does that translate into business? I never thought that way, but maybe. I think definitely what does translate is surfing, especially in this area. There are times where you're at the beach and there's 50 people out and you're pissed off because you're not getting enough waves. And surfing is one of those things where if you're pissed off that you're not getting enough waves have a weird way of like going away from you.
Mhm.
Like, again, that's also life. If you're frustrated, you're angry, like, he's punching the water. Well, you're going to be repelling waves,
Yeah,
and you go down a sort of a downward spiral. But for all of those days, there are days where I spend with 1 or 2 guys, and it's as good as it's ever been.
Mhm.
There was a stretch this winter where I was at I can't remember if San Gregorio or Pomponio. I think it was San Gregorio, where it was just the best it's been in 20 years there. Like, it was that good. And I remember showing up at sunrise, and it's a cold place to surf because it's a valley, and that cold air sinks to the bottom of the valley. And in the morning, the air rises, creates a vacuum, and sucks the air out of the valley towards the ocean, and that's cold air, but it also creates offshore wind.
Mhm.
But the sun is also behind the cliff, so you're in the shade, so it's cold as shit. But I remember pulling up and just seeing one guy out there just get, like, while I'm getting my wetsuit on, like 3 4-second barrels, and I was like frothing, and I got goosebumps thinking about it.
It actually does have goosebumps.
That no better way to explain what surfing has done and can do for your life. It's like, as 51, I still feel like a frothing teenager. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is being able to enjoy this community and that type of environment. It just makes me grateful for the fact that I can live here and I can actually earn a living here.
Mhm.
And I think that helps me in my business because it comes through when I'm talking to people that want to buy a house. Even if they're not surfing, it will come through when I'm talking to them how positive I feel about where we live and how lucky
Yeah.
we are. And I think that helps the business. And the flip side is that sometimes I get bored with this community. Probably do too. I mean, there's not a street corner I haven't like skinned my knee on, or there's not a stretch of beach that I haven't walked on. And sometimes I'm like, fuck, man, I need to see something different.
Yeah.
And when I meet people that I sell a home and they're in this community, I run into them like 3 or 4 months later or whatever it is. A lot of times they say the same thing, which is like, dude, I had no idea. I had no idea it was like it here. It was like this here. And these are people that could be San Carlos, and they're like, we are so glad that we moved here. And that reminds me of how unique of an environment we live in.
Yeah.
And it reminds me to be grateful for what we are.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always curious of what people think when they're not from here and they're seeing it from the outside.
Yeah, I mean, rarely you'll get somebody that's like, and it does happen, we can't deal with the weather.
Yeah.
You know, but that's pretty rare. In fact, we had somebody that was like, why do you tell me about this fucking foghorn?
Oh, yeah.
And we're like, oh, that's a bonus. And they're like, I can't stand it. I'm like, all right, well, then maybe you should, get the hell out.
Yeah.
Um,
It becomes soothing, trust me.
Yeah.
but
Let's sell this house for you.
most people, like when people move here, it's not like they're saying, well, we're looking at homes in San Carlos and Belmont and Half Moon Bay.
Yeah.
It's either they're looking at homes in San Carlos and Belmont in this part of Redwood City, or they're looking in Half Moon Bay over on Montero. It's not two.
Yeah.
And the people that are looking for homes on the coast side are here intentionally. It's a little further out.
Yeah.
The commute's going to be a little bit longer. We don't have a Costco and a movie theater. The weather's not as great. We got traffic on the weekends. So I feel like most of the people that move here are going to be people that want intentionally to live in this community. And I think that's why we have a good kind of vibe here. Because a lot of people that are here are stoked that they're here. They're not
for
just
sure.
here because it's where they can find a place.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people that have a background in action sports, and I just feel like there's something, like I'd love to do some sort of journalism to find the common theme among people that do action sports and where they live and just what that means to them.
So
Because
let's talk about that for 1 second. So 2 points on let's just talk about mountain biking and surfing. Sports where you can leave your house, get your fix in, do 3 Corey laps, or spend an hour and a half at Kelly getting a couple barrels, and be back at your home in 2 hours.
yeah,
That's golden. Because think about most other sports, all team sports, snowboarding, skiing. It's an effort. So we're in a place where you could surf twice and do 2 totally different mountain bike runs in the same day.
Yeah.
And not spend much money. You've got your fixed cost of your stuff, but there's no variable cost every time you bike. You need to pay a lift ticket type of thing.
No, not at all.
And I think that's one of the unique value propositions of just kind of being here. But I would say, in terms of what you're talking about, action sports, and is there any sort of commonality on the people that kind of gravitate to action sports? So if you think about wingsuit flyers, or people that jump out of airplanes, or people that want to huck themselves off cliffs on a mountain bike, it's like, or people that pit themselves at Mavericks when it's, towing only 40 foot. It's like,
Yeah.
why? I mean, there's some danger there. There's some risk. But those type of people, they get off on that. They're giddy. And you're like, well, what is that? Why would you be stoked on putting yourself in an environment which is so high risk? Because on paper, that's not a good thing to do as a human being that wants to carry on your DNA and have more kids, because you're putting your life at risk.
Yeah.
But if you think about humans and how we evolved, it was very common for people to be in high stress, high risk situations, evolving as hunter-gatherers. It's part of who we are, right? We were prey. We were hunters. We had these sort of high intensity, high adrenaline activities as part of our regular life. They weren't recreational. They were nature of survival, right?
That's a great point.
And so biologically, even though we are in a society where society has evolved so much that we don't have to hunt to get our food, and we don't have to worry about being attacked by wild animals in our little hut, wherever it might be, it takes a long time for DNA to catch up with.
So evolve.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because society is relatively new. if we were to have some sort of a cataclysmic event and 95% of humanity were wiped off the face of this planet, you would need those genetic skills to survive.
Yeah.
Why? And the same case can be made for why when you're a teenager and you have a girlfriend and somebody grabs your girlfriend's ass and all of a sudden you want to fight, you want to you're rambunctious and or why do humans biologically are they able to have kids at 15 when we know having kids at 15 is bad? And well, because if society were wiped off the face of this map, would have to have those biological skills to survive.
No societal norms.
Exactly.
Just blank slate. Yeah.
So where we have a lifestyle which is for many people vanilla, watered down, everything's taken care of. I got my Starbucks. I go to my 9 to 5. There's maybe, it's just in a theory, there's maybe an element of who we are as a civilization that needs to feel alive, needs to feel, to get that adrenaline. And where else to get that? Well, it's maybe one way is to maybe put yourselves in 50-foot waves or hook yourself off a cliff.
Yeah. And to tie into that evolution standpoint, that the point that you just made, there's a lot more evolution happening in action sports. Like, you don't see a lot of guys coming out with anything new in the NBA because basketball's been around and it's been kind of relatively the same sport for so long. But when you look at something like surfing, something like mountain biking, there's always a new trick. There's always something new. Something is always evolving.
Record on the jump, on the gap.
Yeah. So like to tie back into what you're saying is from a human evolution standpoint, I think you're dead on with that, because to be able to get the big game and bring it back to your family back in when society wasn't even around and it was just hunters and gatherers, you had to take chances and you had to have that adrenaline in order to survive.
Totally.
Hunters turn.
I really like that point.
Hunters turned into cliff jumpers.
And actually, you can take this topic further. You can take it. There's so many different ways. Like, one of the things we'll probably talk about later is, like, I love to travel. I love to be and a lot of times when we travel, we stay in a decent hotel and it's nice and we got a cocktail and pool, and that's great, and it's easy when you got kids to have those accommodations. But what I enjoy most is kind of being out of my comfort zone. Not to the point where I'm feeling like I'm in a dangerous situation, but like where I'm, dude, this is weird, and I don't know how to navigate here, and like I don't know how to speak the language, and that's also part of that same sort of genetic thing of being in different environments that are challenging, forcing you to learn new things. It feels good when I come back from a vacation like that. I feel alive. I'm fired up. Like, it's like, whoa, I just learned some new things. I just met some new people. I just went to this whole new place. I didn't speak the language, and I rented a car and I couldn't read the street signs. And we were in a funny side story. We were in Nicaragua. Oh, I've been to a bunch of times. I love it down there. And I was with my daughter and my son, and she was 14. And we rented motorcycles for a few days, and we had 6 motorcycles, or 12 of us, or 10 of us.
Damn, that sounds so fun.
And they're like these Chinese versions of 125s, and only 4 of them had registrations. So we get outside of our gated community, and we get on the highway, and you could see all these locals parked on the side of the road with their little mopeds and motorcycles. We're like, what are those guys doing parked there?
Yeah.
So we get like 100 yards past them, and there's cops there. They immediately pulled us over, Nicaraguan federales. So the locals were there because they saw that the cops were there, and they're all pulled off the road.
Yeah.
So we're there for like a half hour. I don't speak Spanish well. They don't speak any English, but I know enough when they're saying you got to come down and talk to El Jefe, the boss at the comp station, and they're on the radio, and we're trying to get the guy that we rented the house from to talk to them to try to sort it out. At the end of the day, it was like my daughter was crying on the back of my motorcycle, and we ended up giving like whatever, $60.
Yeah.
And we were driving away, and I was like, I looked back at my daughter, was that fucking awesome? And she was like, that was the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
But for me, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's like, one, it's like, it's exciting. I knew we weren't really in any danger, but it was still a little scary. Plus, it was like, that's a memory.
Yeah.
She'll be hopefully an old lady and think about that time that she was with her dad, that he forced her to be on a motorcycle with no registration. And we got pulled over by the cops like she said we would. And I said, no, we won't. And that I like that stuff.
Yeah,
The only
You know?
only phrase Dad knew was "Cuánto cuesta?" You know,
That's
how
right.
much does
Yeah,
that? How much does it cost?
But the point is that the lives we have right now they're easy.
yeah,
I don't want to downplay people's struggles, because there are struggles now, but things are pretty much figured out.
yeah.
You can pretty much put food on the table. You can pretty much have a roof over your head. You got clothes to keep you warm, and it wasn't always that way. And I feel like sometimes when we get pushed out of our safe little bubbles and we feel alive as a result of that, there's a reason for that, and that's probably why.
Yeah,
For sure.
that kind of even relates back to the action sports too, right? It's that same kind of adrenaline you're looking for in the unknown.
100%.
Yeah, cool. So we're
100%.
gonna transition a little bit because we haven't talked at all about your
Yeah.
career, but
Yeah.
was there any kind
Who
of
cares about the career?
yeah, we are too.
Yeah,
We're
good.
excited to hear about it. But was there any kind of crossroads in your adult life that really kind of led you to being the way you are today and your personality? And
Well, I was ambitious.
yeah,
I had good social skills. I leaned into that. I was forced to develop that because I think part of that is, nature. My dad had good social skills, so that's probably hereditary. But it's kind of the skill that I had when I wasn't, the tallest, the smartest, the best looking, the athlete.
well, and having to move around a lot too.
But
Yeah,
but yeah, and moving around, and so I leaned into that, and there was an area that I excelled at, and it helped me kind of get by and forge new relationships and kind of learn how social interactions work and how to navigate that, and that's a good skill to have in life because you'll see it
definitely.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And that kind of is an area that I leaned into college, and then when I started in the kind of professional world, actually by my third job, it really served me well because it was a small company. The company I got hired at was basically like 3 hardcore Israeli Jewish people and me. We're working out of an apartment, and when I say hardcore, like I was like making cold calls in this apartment, and like the founder was sitting right here, another founder there, and I'd be getting like text messages over AOL because it's back in AOL.
Messenger. Yeah,
And they'd be like, "Why are you saying that? Don't say that." And I'd be like on the phone with somebody, and I'd be like, "Why are you saying that?" I'd be like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
Oh, come on, I'm just trying to do a
talk
good
about
job.
Can't
small
even
company.
flow.
You're all in
Yeah.
the same room.
And so I had to kind of further develop my ability to kind of forge relationships. And all right, how do I get in with these folks? And what makes them tick? And what are they going to be likely to respect? And figure that out. And that served me well because as that company grew, once I was in with those 3 Israeli people, which I loved to death, I grew with that company, and they saw me as kind of one of them.
Yeah,
Somebody that they could trust, which doesn't come easily in that culture. But that served me well because as that company grew, and it did, so also did my responsibility.
yeah.
But
And-
part of that also is, I'm not so sure how healthy this is, but I was ambitious. So I would look at the next guy that they hired after me and be like, all right, well, I've got to figure out how I am the guy that they pick to run the team and not him. Not to the point where I was trying to sabotage his career, but I was aware of it, and I was cognizant of the fact that, all right, here's some competition here, and the wheels were turning in every way, in the way I dealt with the owners and the way I delivered the things I was asked to deliver. And I was always thinking about that because when you get out of college, we spoke about this a little bit. What do, right? You go out and you get a good job that pays as much money as possible, and then you get that job, and now what do? Well, you want to get a promotion, you want to make more money, you want to have more responsibility, and that's just kind of, I feel like the job and the role is somewhat secondary in today's world, and it's more about achievement, and that's kind of what drove me in those first few years was just do better, get more respect, earn more money, and that's just who I was at the time. I was in my 20s.
For sure.
Is that kind of the first time you felt like you were like cool, like you were in on like a group where you finally got? Because you keep talking about like I wasn't big, I wasn't the high school football star. Was that kind of a time where you like?
No, I think in college I felt like, all right, I'm not a derelict.
Okay.
Where did you go to college?
San Diego State.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And I think probably it was because I wasn't like 5'6" anymore like I was when I was a junior.
Yeah.
At a senior in high school, I was 6'7", 6'7".
Grew into some confidence.
6'7".
Yeah.
6'2". No, but in college, I felt like I finally was settling in a little bit into being comfortable with myself.
Yeah.
And part of being popular, I mean, part of the people that you probably gravitate to in your life, and you as well, are people that they don't need to be good looking or be, the best at everything they do. It's people that just feel comfortable with themselves, who they are, and that makes you feel comfortable and makes you want to spend more time with them. And that's probably where I kind of, for the first time, didn't feel like, I don't want to say an outcast, but just not part of like the in crew. But that was in high school. That's how things are, right?
Yeah, it's
Everything.
Yeah.
And so you're always kind of, you're judging yourself relative to this person or that person or this clique or what that person did. And that's natural. And even in college, it is the same way. Even fucking life, it's the same way. But I think that's probably the first time where I felt a little bit more comfortable with myself.
Especially at a big school like San Diego,
Yeah,
right? There's a lot of different communities you can kind of shove yourself into and find your spot where you do want to be comfortable, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you have any changes from when you left town, Half Moon Bay, and went to San Diego, and then when you came back, you had something different?
Well, first of all, going to from a town of high school of what was it at the time, like 600 or 700, to a college of 40,000. It's big.
That's
It's
crazy.
heavy. I was 17 when I started college, and intellectually, I was probably fine to take on what college had to offer, but emotionally, it was a big step for me.
For sure.
And I remember my getting dropped off at my dorm, and I was like there a day before my roommate showed up, and it was like before you have my parents didn't hang out and help me decorate my dorm like I did with my kids. So they left. Not that it was anything bad. Sorry, Mom. But I remember them leaving, and I was just sitting there in this dorm room and metal furniture, nothing on the walls, and I was like, fuck. And I think I cried at that moment. I was like, this is heavy.
Yeah.
I'm on my own. And so that was a tough transition. And actually, I spent a year there, and a lot of people don't know this, then I came back.
Okay.
And I worked here for 2 years. I went to CSM, taking a bunch of classes, and I worked at Fairlawn View School as a kind of person who worked in the after-school program. And then I went back to San Diego State, which what should have been my senior year, but it was my junior year. And by that time, emotionally, I was probably better positioned for success there.
For sure.
Yeah, because you're 17, you've never been out of the household, and now all of a sudden you're in this school of 40,000 people, and things are dynamic, and you're exposed to situations you've never seen, and you see drugs for the first time, and you're on your own. It's, for some people it might be easy. For me, it was a little tough.
Well, especially coming from a family that loved you so much and spending so much time, especially with a single mom. I'm sure you spent a bunch of time with her. Going to being by yourself for the first time had to have been a huge transition.
Funny thing, not to tie it back into action sports and go thing, but like when I went to school, it was the first time I had really, other than Claire had her friends. I didn't have anybody when I initially moved down to SLO. So what did I do? I started riding my mountain bike.
Yeah.
And I started meeting people through mountain biking, just seeing them on the mountain.
Yeah.
And then I joined a club. Then I had, obviously there's WoW Week, but joined a club, and that's honestly like one of my best friends that I still talk to, who we're going to see like 2 times this summer, who lives in San Diego, Scotty. Shout out Scotty Richards.
Scout.
The only reason we really connected off the bat was because we were in WoW Week together, and I was like, do you ride mountain bikes? And he's like, yeah, I do actually. I was like, sick. All right, cool. We didn't have to say anything more. We just kind of hung out around each other.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Was there Greek life at SLO in Cal Poly?
There was, but I don't feel like it's the Greek life that you see at like a Division I college.
Or at San Diego, right?
Yeah. Were you in Greek life?
I was. So when I went back there, and it was, you know what? Greek life gets a bad rap, and honestly, of course, there's douchebags in fraternities, and there's douchebags outside of fraternities, and there's elitist stuff going on where we have this big party, and you can't come into our party unless you have girls, and that's going on. But and I think that's what gets a lot of the headlines. And there's over drinking, and certainly there's hazing. My son, who's in a fraternity, it's amazing how much hazing still happens. Even worse than when I went to college, and it's such a high risk situation that it's just amazing that it still happens. But outside of all of that, some of the best relationships that I have as an adult of people that I met when I was an adolescent or a young man came from that sort of type of social environment.
For sure.
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you join back as an upperclassman, or did you go in as a freshman?
So that's
Yeah.
part of probably when you say, when did you start to feel like you're in the cool group?
Yeah.
That was probably an inflection point because I went back as a 1-year-old
Yeah.
and I was a pledge.
Yep.
And I was living with people that, like the guy that I met in, I told you was my friend in Burlingame.
Oh yeah.
So I reconnected with him, and he was going to San Diego State, so we went back down there together, and he was already in the fraternity. So I'm living in a house with all of these guys that are active members, and I'm a pledge, but I'm
Yeah.
older than the rest, so that was kind of like on a, I guess,
Yeah.
different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you probably didn't see a whole lot of the hazing.
I
Yeah,
did, and
Yeah.
I actually loved it.
Yeah.
I was like, seriously, I was like, want to make a drink of beer? Yeah, drink a beer. Crashing, breaking them on my head. Like, that all you got? You know, just like that was part of that kind of
Yeah.
adrenaline.
Proving
thing,
yourself.
you know?
Yeah.
And it was all in
Yeah.
good spirits. And there was guys there's a guy in my pledge class, his name is Browder, and he was a super cool guy, but he definitely walked the beat of a different drum.
Yeah.
And they'd lean into him and be like, fucking pound that beer. And he'd be like, no, I don't think I want to do that. And they'd like two guys on either side of his face just fucking screaming at him for like 60 seconds. They'd be like, all right, you're good.
Yeah.
And they move on.
Yeah.
So like at the same time, it's like they respected, people that stood up for what they
Yeah.
And that guy had
Sure.
the ultimate frat boy name too.
Yeah, Browder. Totally.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So was there ever a moment in your life where you really realized, like, you thought to yourself, I have what it takes to be on your own and do your own thing?
I think there was, so to do my own thing, I'll take a step back. I think there was a moment in my life where I started to realize that I knew what I could do to convince myself that I have what it takes. It's a difference. I'll give you an example. I remember interviewing for a job, and this is back when I was thinking about kind of out there, esoteric, maybe more spiritual stuff back when I was young. And so my mind was turning on these things, and how do I kind of combat my insecurity and stress going into an interview? And I would sit in a car, and I'd listen to music. I'd get, like, before the interview, I'd show up like half an hour early, and I would listen to music. I would, everybody's got that certain type of music where you just feel like you can fly.
What was your song?
I don't know, maybe like Mariah Carey or
Oh,
something.
there you go.
Oh,
All I want
shit.
for
No, I'm
Christmas
just kidding.
is
I'm
you.
just-
I was like, that is not what I was expecting.
I'm kidding.
It's just
I
Christmas
forget
music.
what it was. But
Yeah.
the point is, like,
Motley Crue.
Celine Dion.
I knew how to like hack myself, and I would have like a moment of silence, take some deep breaths, and I would just reiterate some mantra in your mind, like I'm whatever it happens to be. I'm good. I'm hireable. They're gonna want to hire me, and I would just do that for maybe literally like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I would go in with a sense of not arrogance, but a sense of centeredness and confidence, which helped me in that environment. So that was kind of a practice that I started early on, and I still do that in some derivative today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that similar to like what they call separate realities?
I don't know what's
It's actually there's also a form of OCD too that you kind of people convince themselves of things, but the separate realities, I believe that's what it's called, is where you can kind of hack your brain and tell yourself that this is the reality that I'm going to be living compared to what I'm living in now.
So I think so, but if you actually take a step back, a lot of these things are common sense. A kid who's born into an environment where he's told he's a worthless piece of shit is going to grow up with some baggage.
Yeah.
He's going to grow up having to prove himself that he's not a worthless piece of shit. So that's very easy for people to understand because, we run into that in our culture in the news and the families that we know that parents are kind of mean to their kids. But the opposite is true too. If you're raised in a family where you're told, you're good just the way you are, and you're going to be something great, whatever you want to do. If you're told that your whole life, you will start to believe it. And so that is the concept. If you just sit and repeat something in your mind over and over and over, your mind doesn't know the difference between the story you tell it and what's actually happening in the reality that you observe in your life.
Sure.
So that's one of those hacks, is that you can just use those concepts just to brainwash yourself.
Yeah.
Brainwash yourself in a manner that is a positive one.
Good
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you're kind of into the Deepak Chopra and those type of.
Yeah, I got
That's-
I got way into the deep end of that stuff, which we
Yeah.
can talk about. I don't know when we
Yeah,
want to
maybe
talk
we'll-
about that.
yeah,
That's a whole
maybe
that's a
we'll
whole
get into it.
nother
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
get back into the career stuff and talk
conversation.
about it
But
later.
yeah,
So you started in tech. What was it that made you want to switch careers and start your own thing?
yeah, it's a good question. I think it's an important question.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, so we spoke a little earlier that you get out of college, you do what you're expected to do, that you believe you want to do, achievement, make money, get responsibility, climb the ladder, get a house, get a white picket fence, get a family, get a couple kids, even a fucking dog. That's great, but then at some point, maybe you get enough responsibility and you have enough people you're managing and you're making enough money and you've got enough recognition. And at some point I was starting to ask myself, what am I doing here? I was driven and I was stoked on where I was working, but it wasn't because my life's purpose was to sell online advertising.
Yeah.
And if it really came down to it, no offense to the people that I worked with that trusted me for so many years, I really didn't give a shit about online advertising.
Yeah. Did you kind of feel stuck there too?
It yes, to some extent. So what happened was the company grew, we were acquired. Part of the acquisition was that I had to work with the new company for a couple of years contractually. And then the company changed a little bit just because it wasn't any longer sort of the small family type environment that we built the company together. We were a much bigger company, and that was one reason. But the main reason is I started to think, is this something that is meaningful to me? Outside of just the need to achieve and be recognized, is this like, do I care about this? And the reality is what I cared about was money, recognition, being achieved. I didn't really care about what I was doing. And so there was this voice in my head. I'd been like kicking it around, and it was a voice in the back of my head that was just there. Like, is this what you should be doing? And it got louder and it got louder, and then I'd be pissed off about something at work and it would get louder. And then there was an inflection point, period. And it was in December of 2015. I read a stupid Facebook post about somebody wrote, these are the top 5 things that we hear about on people's deathbeds from somebody that worked in hospice. So they spent their lives with people at the end of their life. And like 3 of those things were really personal to me. One of them was not spending enough time with their family. Another one was putting too much value in money.
Yep.
And it was that moment, like that second, where I read that post where I was like, that's it, I'm out. Like literally at that moment, I was completely convicted. I gave notice like a week later. It was like 8 months before I actually left the company.
Yeah.
But the point is, I had been traveling a lot. I'd been gone like 2 weeks of every month. I got 2 kids. I got a marriage which is on the rocks, which ultimately wasn't the right marriage, but I'm certain that I contributed to at least half of why we got divorced. Career might have been part of it. And at that moment, it was like, this is it, I'm out. And so I made the decision to do what I wanted to do, which was start a real estate company. And I'd wanted to do that since 2012 when I was licensed, and this was 2015, so 3 years later.
Oh, so you'd already had your license beforehand.
Because I had a dream.
Yeah.
I even registered a business name in 2012. But
Did you dabble at all in it beforehand, or was it you were so busy with work and traveling around?
Yeah, I
and
didn't really.
Family and stable life.
And you
right?
get a mortgage, and you've
Yeah.
got bills, and you've got kids, and it's difficult to take that risk because people depend on you.
Yeah.
But that was the moment where it was like, I'm going for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge jump straight
Yeah.
into. But you had the drive to go ahead and do it, I guess, right?
I did it. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. There's a mindset thing when you do something like this is like no plan B. When there's no plan B, you got nothing to fall back on.
They're all in.
I'm all in. I had a rental property which I bought. It was my house, and I rented it out, and I was proud, super proud, because it's like, all right, I own 2 houses. That was going to be part of like what was retirement. Like I got the second house, and And I didn't have a ton of money in the bank when I started the real estate business, but I needed some because you have a family and you got bills and insurance and a mortgage. So I sold the rental property. The point is I sacrificed that which was very dear to me in order to get something which was going to be more dear to me. If you say, I want to do this, it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice to get that? And part of that was this level of achievement, which was this other house. So I sold that house. I had enough money in the bank so that I could get by a year, basically.
That's crazy because you had reached basically the American dream of white picket fence, house, family, and
two of them,
2 houses,
two white picket fences,
and pushed part of it away to start this empire you have now.
And it was in the face of people that were. There's nobody that didn't question what I was doing. Yeah. The people that I worked with were like, real estate? Are you sure? Like, you're in a good place here. You got a good job. You got the respect to the people you work with, job security. My family, we're going to do this. At one point it was, I had to just say, you got to trust me. Yeah. Even though in my own mind, I was having those same questions like, what the fuck? Am I just being irresponsible? And that's
sabotaging.
Yeah. Or just ignorant.
Yeah.
Am I going to be here a year from now being like, what did I throw away?
Yeah. Well, and that's recent memory from like 2010 when you got the license, but that's when like the market crashed too, right? 08 to 2010. So it was soon after. So I'm sure that was going through a lot of people's head too of like, that's in recent memory. Yeah. That's something that could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
For sure.
Well, to transition a little bit, I mean, today you're running 2 businesses. You have the barn and you're a real estate broker. Your dream in real estate came true. How are you, like, what is when you think of a fulfilling day and you're able to look back on your day and you're content with what you did that day, what you accomplished, what does that look like for you now? Because I feel like that's really hard for people to picture, especially if they're working a 9 to 5 or whatever the walk of life may be. What does a fulfilling day for you look like?
I probably so if I'm with my family, I took my family to Costa Rica for a couple weeks over the summer, and it was epic. And spent some time in the mountains. We spent some time at the beach, and we had 6 quads for a week, just roasting around. And if I think back at that, to me, that's meaningful because it's like, I don't have an employer. I don't get 2 weeks paid vacation. I don't get health insurance. Mm-hmm. And I could be like, this I did on my own back, but it's not my own back. My wife is at least 50% of this process. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do any of this without her, but we did this.
Shout out Melanie.
Yeah, we did this on our own back. Like we said we're going to do this. We put ourselves against odds, and that feels good. I've got 2 kids in college, and we're making it work, and there's a sense of independence, and I don't know if pride's the right word, but just listen, we did this.
Yeah.
And it feels good.
Yeah. Sense of accomplishment.
Getting to see it all pay off, right?
Yeah. And I think it's good for my kids to see as well that we did something that maybe would have been irresponsible to leave a career, start a real estate business, because that was what was in my heart. And it worked. Yeah. And the message there is that if you do what's really in your heart and like find out what you want to do, and that's not always super easy because sometimes you'll say what you want to do, but it's what you think you want to do based upon how you're raised. And we spoke about that, achievement, job, career, whatever. But find out what really you want to do. And if you just do that, the world has a way of working out for you. The doors will open for you. The people you meet that you need to meet that will help you along the way will show up. And I thought I was sacrificing money for doing what I want. I remember saying, listen, I'm not going to make as much money as we did in tech, but at least I won't be stressed out. I won't be traveling all the time. I won't be seeing my kids. And the reality was 6 months into the new career, I was making more than I ever did.
Yeah.
Ever. And that's the point is, and it's scary to do what you want to do when you get in careers that are comfortable. It's difficult to make a change. The same thing could be said for a relationship. You can get a relationship with somebody you don't love, but it's easy. They don't fuck with me. We've been together forever. Well, maybe it's not the place for you to be. Same with that job that you know in your heart's not the place for you to be, but you're just there because it's easy and you know how to do it. You make a check. Listen to where you want to be and do what you want to do in your heart, and the rest will work out. And that's maybe I'm a unique situation, but I don't think I am. I think that's just the way it works.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. And we've seen that you have drive, and we've obviously seen that you do your open houses, building fences and chairs at the barn. Do you ever find that you're happy and being busy and maybe find it hard winding down?
So I think being busy is it's an output of something that might be dysfunctional in myself. And it's because I tend to get bored, and I always feel like I need to be doing something new. So I have trouble sitting and relaxing. And even when I'm on vacation, it's like 6 o'clock, let's get up, kids, chop, 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 you know. Yeah, exactly. It's like, and I haven't really figured that out yet, but there's something there that I probably need to work on. And so this is why I'm always doing something. And this is why, I mean, the barn was great. I've got a great partner there. You know the barn well, used to work there.
Still wearing the shirt.
And that was an amazing business. But part of the impetus for that was probably, all right, well, real estate, got it figured out. What's next?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's good because those what's next things are making money, but there's probably something there I need to work on that I just I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah.
With not having something to work on.
You find comfort in the always moving, I guess, right? Yeah. No, that's not a bad thing, but yeah, maybe just trouble winding down then, I guess, right? Do you have something that you do to kind of wind down and find comfort in sitting still, maybe?
I listen to, I was going to say I read a lot, but I can't read. If I read a book, I'll have to read the same page like 40 times.
Yeah.
Like I'll get through half the page and I'll be like, my mind will wander. So I just not good with reading paper books, but I listen to a ton of audiobooks, probably like 6 to 8 a month.
Wow.
And so I'll listen to them when I get home. I'll listen to them when I go to sleep. And that's kind of good because it kind of, I can stay silent.
Yeah. That's cool. When the decision was made to merge companies with David, you guys became Ocean Element and became an absolute juggernaut in the real estate industry with over 1,700 combined homes sold. And both companies were doing very well before the merger. So could you tell us a little bit about the decision?
We've sold 170 million homes last week.
170 million homes.
That's 90% of the homes sold in Half Moon Bay, and the whole country we did it all. I'm just kidding. That's just that's just a plan.
Like, no, that's all 170.
That's just a plan on a lot of self-stroke stuff you see in the real estate where people are just flexing all the time.
Well, I mean, the dollar amount is pretty high though.
Yeah, we've done great. Sure, yeah, and we're grateful for that. But the question is why do we merge?
Yeah, what was the decision behind the actual merger?
So there was no need. There was no like agenda item to merge. Actually, it's quite the opposite. I was very comfortable. I had my own little company. We ran it the way we wanted to. We weren't beholden to anybody else, and probably David the same way. But in real estate, you do deals with people, and so you get to know them a little bit and the type of people they are and the way they conduct their business. And David and I just kind of we vibed there. I mean, he has a strong moral compass and a strong kind of ethical foundation, which we share and I respected. And we just started kicking around the idea, like, is there a way for us to partner? Because we're both independent, locally owned. And that's not a jab to other realtors, because all realtors, whether you're at a national company or not, are local.
Yeah.
But our business is not headquartered in Dallas or New York. I mean, we are local, and we're not beholden to any sort of non-local corporate entity. And that's something that was important to the both of us. And so we shared that, and we started kicking things around. And again, there was no agenda to merge. In fact, there was apprehension, because it was a little bit like, how would we partner? Because you've got your thing and I've got my thing, and I do my thing my way and you do your things your way, and we're similar in some ways, but we're different in others. And if we partner, then it's no longer my thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but the more we spoke about it, we spoke for probably a year, the more reasons came up to merge the company. And there were things that David was really great in that I wasn't as good in, or interested in. And there were things that, like operationally, Element Real Estate was very sophisticated. My wife was a full-time dedicated operational resource that ran all the operations, which was overkill for the size of our company. So we were able to help level David up in that way. David is super engaged in the community, and so I respected that, and I was able to kind of latch onto that and the efforts he's done there. He loves managing people. I not so much. I mean, not that I hate people, but I feel better when I'm out doing deals, and so this is why I had such a small team and I never grew, and so that was where I could leverage some of his experience and skills. And there was I don't want to get into all of these situations. There was 10 and then 20 and all sorts of these reasons kept coming up why it makes sense. So then we started to think about what would it look like if we were one company, and how can we maintain the identity of who you are and who I am while still being something new. And the reality is we both had to be okay with putting to bed, out to pasture, so to speak, certain parts of that which we built that we were proud of in order to become something better, something bigger. And that's kind of that's a concept you can use in your life when you say, I want to become this, I want to do this. Well then, all right, so what are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want? And that was a tough process for us. We went back and forth on the name for weeks because it's like, all right, is it Element Blue? No, but then Element is first before Blue. All right, was it Blue Ocean? No, well then that's Blue, and Element. And it was like the logo and the colors, and it was like, it took a while to get through that because we were both very passionate about the business. I remember my kids saying when I told them we were merging, they're like, but Dad, that's your company.
That's like your baby.
So it was for both of us. So it was a process. There was some things we had to dig in through, which is natural, but we figured it out. And honestly, I'm so grateful because he's one, I'm learning a lot from him. Two, he's a fantastic human being, and I'm honored to be working alongside him. And three, it's really taken our business to the next level. There was a point where we were talking about negotiating when I was talking to my wife when we were talking about combining. I mentioned to my wife, if we do this, I can't just go fuck off for 4 months in Indonesia. I mean, I'm going to have people that are count on me. I have like 9 new agents that are going to count on me. I'm going to have a partner that I'm responsible to. Is it something I really want to do? And this year, my business is double what it was last year. And there's no real reason I can point to. I mean, the economy isn't any better than last year. It's not like things are great overnight. But because we merged, it forced me to get back into my business, to double down, to dig in. This is kind of the no plan B philosophy. Like there's people that count on me now. And just by virtue of spending time and attention and participating in the business has resulted in more opportunities coming our way. And I'm super grateful.
That's awesome. And it takes a certain kind of person to work in a partnership. And it seems now that you have two business that you have a partner, and then coming from someone that didn't play any team sports, how do you manage that? I mean,
listen, it's tough. I feel like that should be the thing you should focus on more than anything else when you're going into a partnership is how do we handle it when one person is feeling slighted and needs to get something off the chest, because it's difficult to call somebody up. Like if you have a brother and your brother does something to piss you off, you could be like, what the fuck was that? Why are you being such an asshole? That was wrong. You bite your tongue with your people you work with professionally, and then that comes to bite you later. So that was difficult, but we found pretty early on when somebody would speak up and say, hey, this is something that, caused me pause, or I'm not really great on getting back to people on email and text. Sometimes I get busy, parts of my ADD. And David had to say a couple times, hey, if I send you something asking for something, it'd be nice if you got back to me.
Yeah.
And I had to say, you know what, that's fair.
Yeah.
And also not only say that's fair, but say, I appreciate you bring that up. And next time something like this comes up, I want you to also bring it up. So we developed this sort of dynamic. Yeah. Otherwise, what happens? Somebody pisses you off and you don't say anything, and then it festers, and
Yeah, you got to have thick skin. And you got to allow the other person to get something off their chest.
100%.
Can't be so sensitive to the point to where they don't feel comfortable bringing something up.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's funny because me and Gavin have been going through that just with the podcast. a lot lately, and I
Yeah.
find myself apologizing a lot because I'm like,
But-
I don't know, I feel like I'm being needy.
Yeah, you told me about that.
It's also-
It's between the shifts. You wanted to call it between the sheets, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, dude, I know. It's like,
I'm just kidding.
no, we're
It's
all
funny though,
yeah.
because like it's also it's another form, like when you're texting, or whether it's texting or emailing, anything where it's just text behind the message, it's a lot harder to communicate effectively because I prefer a call. I like to just call
100%.
and talk because you can get a better read on somebody. So it's harder when you're texting back and forth, and like, say Ian's texting me and he has a great point, and I'm at cornhole and I can't respond effectively or what I
You
want
might
to
be
say.
short, and he might be like, "Fuck this guy. He's just being short." And I told him
Exactly.
I had an issue.
Yeah.
But then I call him when I get the chance,
Yeah.
and I talk to him, and
Well,
I
luckily,
think that's really important.
we work pretty well together, which works out.
yeah.
We definitely have different ideas, and we just kind of bounce them
And
off each other.
Dave's the exact same way. You call David and you have a much better conversation than texting, especially because he's on an Android.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not getting any blue message from him.
So
Yeah.
how do, in the real estate world, how do you manage client expectations with the fluctuating market? Everything always seems like it's changing in real estate in a deal. So how do you manage with clients? How do you manage their expectations when going into a deal?
So this is a big question. When you say expectations of what they expect in the deal or what they expect to get out of homeownership.
Mostly the deal,
Okay.
because I find that in a deal you could get,
Okay.
like, conversation-wise, it could get twisted, and they have a certain set expectation. Do you think it's better to go in with no expectations and try to make a deal?
Totally not. So, first of all, like we're talking about pre-deal.
Mhm.
Let's say you have a house and you're a buyer, and you want to buy a house, and let's say it might be competitive. There might be a couple offers you're competing with. So, that's a process. I need to prepare people for mentally what they're going to experience as part of that process. And so it's about explaining to them, here's what goes into offer. Here's your ways to cancel an offer, your contingencies. There's all that boilerplate stuff that every agent should be able to do effectively. But there's other elements to it. Like, for example, Gavin, when we're going to make an offer on this house, figure out what your go, no-go mark is. Like, how high are you willing to go? Get solid on that now. Before you get into a negotiation process, when things get emotional, you don't want to blow past that number and get into a place that you're uncomfortable with. So while you're of sane body of mind, figure out where that amount is. So that way, if you're negotiating and it happens to go above that, you can say, you know what? We already had this conversation. We know that that's not an area we're going to be comfortable with, and we're going to bow out. But then the harder part is, where do you find out where that line is? Because somebody will say 1.2 million. That's it. We're not going over 1.2 million. It's like, okay, so if there's multiple offers and you say 1.2 is my best and final, and you find out that they chose another offer at 1.205, are you going to be like totally crushed? You're like, oh, fuck, yeah, that'd be miserable. All right, well, then 1.2 million is not your go, no go.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 1.205. So that's a part of managing people's expectations as it relates to how to navigate the process effectively, with that, not from a place of emotion, but from a place of pragmatism. And those are the best negotiations, when people can divorce. So it's very easy for me to see a functional path through negotiations when I'm not buying a house.
Yeah.
Not my money.
Yeah.
Right. So I tend to be a voice of non-emotional reason through that process, which is naturally a place where buyers and sellers are going to get kind of caught up in their emotions. And sometimes it can work to their detriment. There'll be places where a buyer and a seller are negotiating. Buyer says, we're going to, here's our final offer, $1.3 million. And the seller says, all right, fine. We'll take your $1.3 million, but we're going to take out our $15,000 Wolf stove, and we're going to put a $2,500 stove in it, which is kind of a jank maneuver. It's kind of dicked. So then the buyer's gets all offended, right? And they tell their agent, and then the agent tells the seller's agent, hey, that was kind of a fucked up move. You want to rip out the stove? And then the seller reconsiders, and he's like, all right, fine. We'll take the $1.3 million offer, and you can have the Wolf range. But the buyer's now offended. So they're now like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Now it's 1.25.
Yeah.
So that's where ego and emotion can kind of get involved in things to your detriment, where it makes sense to get a plan of action ahead of time. And I think as it relates to expectations, it's helpful to be prepared there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm also kind of curious of, have you worked with new realtors and people that are first time buying or selling a house for someone else,
Yeah.
right? How do you manage their expectations? Because a lot of the time I feel like they go in happy-go-lucky, and there's a lot more work that goes into it.
So I think first-time realtors, it's kind of like being somebody that surfed at a local beach for 20 years, and you have this guy. It's not even a kid. It's a guy who just moved here. Hey, man, they're on their first surfing day like you had yours, and you need to respect them, and you need to not try to judge them, and you need to kind of keep that in mind, that they're no different than you were when you started. It's the same way with realtors. And I think one of the negotiation tactics which works best for me is not even a negotiation, just tactic in life, is don't be afraid to show a little vulnerability. Like, I had a client where we were selling their house in Fremont. They bought a house here, and we listed their house in Fremont, and I got the pricing down, and 2 months on the market, it hadn't sold, and this is an environment where every house I was selling is in like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a call, and they were like, yeah, we just want to know why our house isn't selling. And I didn't have the answer. And usually you want to have the answer, right?
Yeah.
You need to have an answer. That's kind of how, make up an answer if you don't have an answer. But the reality is, I told them, like, listen, we prepped it right. We priced it right. And I told them, I said, this is a kind of uncomfortable place for me to be. I don't have the solution. And that's kind of freaks me out a little bit. I don't advise that as a strategy for other people, just so you know, you got to choose your audience and the right environment. But we got off the call, and they called me back like 10 minutes later, and he's like, we just want you to know that that's why you need to be a realtor. And the reason is because nobody has the answers 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So if you come off as the yes guy, or the guy that's got a solution for everything, immediately there's a reason to not trust everything of what you're saying, because it's not possible that people have answers all the time.
Yeah.
And it gets back to your question about a first-time realtor. I had a house I was listing on Sonora in El Granada, and I was a listing agent. I had 2 agents, and they were writing offers, and one agent was kind of a dick, and he was like, well, how do you arrive at your price? And I'm like, well, we did a market valuation, and this is what the seller wanted, and he was trying to convince me that it wasn't priced well. It's kind of being an ass. And I had another agent, which was like, she's like, I'm new, and this is the 3rd offer I'm writing with this client, and I could really use a win. And she was honest, and she was vulnerable, and that's the person I wanted to help.
Yeah.
Not to the detriment of my client's agenda. Like, I didn't just disregard their what they wanted, but if I can help that agent over the agent that's being a jerk, I'll do that all day long.
Yeah.
And so that's part of. Listen, we're talking about career and these type of things. That's great. Career is great. It's good to talk about that stuff, but it's just career. There's through career, you learn things that can help you in life in general. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is just be kind and respectful. And if you do that, things will go your way. And they may not go your way that moment or that next day, but they will go your way in the long run. And I die on that concept.
Well, and you be real with me, and I be real with you.
Totally.
It's certain kind of honesty.
And sometimes it's a breath of fresh air when you walk into an open house, and it's a shitbox, and it's got holes in the drywall, and the toilet tripped out of the floor, and the agent's like, that's hosting the open house is like, isn't it amazing? And don't you see how great it is? And you're like, I can see this as a shitbox, just like you. Just fucking be honest with me.
Yeah.
So when you walk in a house, and you can say, guess what? This house is a little rough around the edges. That's not doing your seller a detriment. That's like being honest with the person that's in front of you.
Yeah. And
by doing that, they may think, well, all right, that's kind of an interesting thing for a seller's agent to say. And now they might trust you a little bit.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's being real with the selling side's client and managing their expectations too. Because if you walk into somewhere and you're like, this is great, we're going to get so much over asking, and look at the comps, and realistically the inside of the place is a dump. And
and for all the sellers out there, if I saw your place and it needs some work, I'm not going to call it a shitbox in front of buyers. It's just, unless it really is a shitbox. And
even then you still wouldn't.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Well, let's make a bit of a transition here.
Yeah.
Because a big part of where you live, and we're not going to talk about where you live, but you sacrificed part of your property to make basically a communal pump track. Something for the community to come and enjoy when they can at your place.
I just want to know how that decision came to be, because property isn't cheap. You can use your land for something much more valuable than that. How did you ultimately decide to turn that portion of your property into a communal pump track?
Well, first I would say value is a subjective term, an objective term, and subjective, sorry. And value monetarily is one thing, but there's also value you can extract, which isn't about money. So I feel like the highest and best use for that property now is what we're doing now. We are driving value. So how it came about. Remember when the kids built that pump track in between Miramar and El Granada, and it was COVID, and kids didn't have anything to do.
Just to get them outside.
And the county showed up with the bulldozer, and there was this big deal, and they were going to shut it down, and the yellow tape came up. And that was at a point where we had this extra part of our yard, which we didn't use, and it was a big yard. And we met this guy named Iggy, who's just a fantastic human being who is passionate about biking and knows BMX tracks and pump tracks. And we just said, you know, maybe we can do something here. And so we called in free dirt from construction sites around the area that we're excavating, and okay, dump your dirt here. And it wasn't always good dirt, but we made it work. And we had a friend that let us use his tractor for 6 months. And we had guys that would show up with shovels and rakes, and it was a killer community effort. And it was probably a year-long process, because we made the track, and then you tweak it, and we'd have people that really know how to ride that would come ride it and say, you should change this, you should do that. And it was this killer process where the community came together, and we built an epic resource for the community, not just kids, but parents as well. And we're probably almost 5 years in the making. And we haven't had any issues, and we haven't had anybody complain. And hopefully someday when, the pump track is long gone, these kids that are riding it in their 50s will be like, remember when we had that pump track back then? And it will be one of those things that is thought of as a positive thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it always will be a positive.
I got a side note, though. We had really one of the community's really good, if not best, riders there, like just a specimen physically, do a contest with a bunch of other kids on how many laps can they do pump track without stopping. And this guy was in it. And
some old washed up dude.
And we did, and everybody washed out by like 130 laps.
Oh my God.
And when the sun was going down, these guys are sweating, and Gavin kept going, not to 135, but to 200. And everyone's like, fuck, what is this guy we got to get out of here. But it was just one of those like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah, it was going long enough. You came back out on your porch.
Yeah.
I gotta shut the fucking lights off.
And it was one of those things that you didn't just win by 5 laps, but you was like, I win by 80 laps. And I think that was, it was cool. A testament to commitment and also athletic ability, which translates to everything.
There's honestly competitiveness, because before we started, Parker and I were talking shit back and forth.
Yeah.
Parker went out at 100 laps.
Yeah.
So I was like,
He went to 200.
I'm going 200.
Whatever, Parker.
You can't pedal.
Yeah.
You can't
I
pedal.
don't know if anybody's read a pump track, but even if you ride bikes and you go and you do 3 laps, you're gassed.
Yeah.
You are gassed after 3 laps. So to do 200 is like, holy shit.
Jumping on a trampoline for 14 hours.
Yeah.
I was no use the next day.
Yeah.
But
That's
it was
all right. You got the W.
Yeah.
Didn't even need a trophy.
It's the only place I'll ever somewhat beat Parker in biking, so I'll take that.
Yeah, it's cool.
So your interests are a little more out of this world than most people that have come on here. And I'm kind of curious, what got you so into science and space, and who did you look up to in that space?
Oh, gosh. So I guess ever since I was a kid, I was into space and science and spaceships and designing a space station when I was young out of like candy wrappers that I would make and glue together. And then I was into Star Trek and all that nerdy shit
Sci-fi.
growing up. And then I got interested in the science part of things, solar systems, universe, chemistry,
Astrophysics and physics.
quantum physics. Quantum physics is probably what kind of gets me going the most. And then in parallel, as I started to become a younger man, I got into different types of, woo-woo concepts, spiritual concepts, manifest your destiny, all that type of stuff. And the more I dove into that stuff, when I say dive into it, I'm talking about like inhaling books and material. You said, who have I read? Well, you cut your teeth with easy people like Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, and this is on the spiritual side, but then you can easily get way off out into no man's land with Alan Watts and Carlos Castaneda and a bunch of other people. But you start reading all this stuff, and a lot of the stuff doesn't make sense to you, and you kind of like, all right, well, that doesn't work for me. But the things that do make sense to you, you take them and you use those concepts in your life. And the things that interest me most are how the world of the nitty-gritty science, physics, quantum physics, and the world of the spiritual concepts are saying the same thing in the areas that they overlap or the areas that I like to dig into. And I'll just give you one quick example of that. It's on a quantum physics level, the nature of the object that you're looking at is dependent upon the observer, period, full stop. For anybody that wants to look, there's something called the double slit experiment. I won't get into it, but look it up on Google. It'll blow your fucking mind. But basically, the object doesn't exist until somebody observes it. And it's not a theory, it's law. Well, that sounds a lot like get your mind right, manifest your destiny, your world will work out in accordance to the way that you're kind of perceiving and feeling about your world. Well, those are two different concepts, one on a quantum level, one on a macro level, that are saying the same things. And so I firmly believe, believe that the world around me is 100% dependent on how I believe it to be. If I think the world is an unhealthy place, a mean place, my experience will be meeting mean, unhealthy people. I'll have a tough run.
Yeah.
If I believe the world is good, if I believe humanity is good, if I believe things will go my way, they will, and they do.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, that's just fact.
Yeah.
There's no even.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way your mentality is, you can change your reality.
Yeah.
Right. Do you ever have trouble talking to people about maybe some of the esoteric theories? And
Yeah.
I know you talk to your kids about it a lot.
Yeah, my kids and I they dig into it, and we have conversations. But like I'm into stuff. Like my belief system is, for most people, will be pretty far out there, and it might freak people out, or they might just have no interest in it. But it's not a lot of people think about these type of things. Like I'm into the nature of consciousness and different dimensional realities, and the nature of time, and time as a construct, and all of these things where some people you just talk to and they're just glassy eyes. And my wife is one of them, and it's perfectly fine because I know that I'm out there. Mm-hmm. But these are the things that we talk about, work and career and these things, and those are interesting to me, and I like to talk about those things. I like to wrap my head around those things. Building furniture, you mentioned the barn. This is the stuff that really is important to me.
Yeah.
Because it's not just how do I succeed in work, it's how do I succeed as a human being?
Yeah.
How do I see my place in this world? How do I conduct myself? What does that mean for me, for my family, for my life? But not just in concept, in more sort of more scientific kind of perspective. Mm-hmm. Anyways.
And it never stops, right? There's an infinity to it. And
the knowledge never stops. It's scratching the surface, and I'll probably be here 80 years still breaking new ground there.
And like you said, it's discoveries are not real until they've been discovered.
I'll give you one really easy one that people should be able to kind of wrap their head around. The physical world around you is invisible. There's no such thing as a white wall or a black microphone. What happens is light photons coming off light are hitting an object, and they bounce off this object with a certain frequency, right? That's electromagnetic radiation. It's invisible. It does not have any inherent color. It hits your eyes. You have 3 cone cells in your eyes, and each one detects a different section of the light spectrum, and it says this is red, this is whatever, the 3 primary colors. Red, orange,
red, green, blue.
Red, green, blue, and then there's another cone cell
which
detects light and dark, but it's detecting something invisible, saying, send a signal to your brain that says this is red. But the light itself has no color. So you really literally are creating the visible world in your mind. It still exists, but it's invisible. And there are animals that see an infrared, and to them the world sees different. The world that doesn't appear in color. You can say the same thing for sound. Sound doesn't make a sound inherently. It only makes a sound when it hits your eardrum. So you are creating the visible world around you in your mind, full stop. So that's a very easy, it's not even open to an opinion.
Yeah.
But that's another element of you actually, I believe, create everything in your mind. The death doesn't exist without us being here. You know, that nature, if a tree falls down in the forest and there's
Does it
nobody
still
around to
make a
hear it,
sound?
does it make
Yeah.
a sound? Well, if the tree falls down in the forest and there's nobody around to hear it, the tree doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always been curious for colorblind people, right? Because people will be red-green colorblind, and
Yeah.
it's funny because if you tell someone this is green, someone else might see a different color in their
Completely.
brain. But
And this also gets into people's experience in life could be totally different with the same objective reality. Like, listen, people that I can't ever get ahead in life. Fucking man's always got me underneath his thumb, paying taxes. I can't ever meet a good woman or a good man. Are those people ever gonna get ahead in life? Are they ever gonna meet a good woman or a man? No, they're basically telling the world, they're telling themselves, my experience in life is at the will of everybody else besides me.
Mm-hmm.
My experience in life is subjective to the man, or I can't meet a good woman because there's no good women out there. Well, what you're telling yourself is I have no control over my own experience in my life. If you can say I haven't met a good man or woman because I haven't made good choices, right? Or I can't get ahead in life, I'm under the thumb of the man because I caused that situation, then you go from playing a victim to actually telling yourself subconsciously, all right, I created this situation, it sucks.
Yeah.
But if I created it, then I can create a different situation. Versus, I didn't create this situation. My experience is at the will of everything else. Then you're powerless.
Yeah.
Then you can't make it change.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
you go
Yeah,
from
yeah,
being
definitely.
at
Yeah.
the mercy of the world to in
Totally.
the driver's seat just
Yeah.
by changing your mentality.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
food for thought.
Sorry, got off the deep end.
No. We love that.
And the other concept, which is really, I spent a lot of time into, is there's no objective good or bad, war or peace. Those are only things that we label and we judge. And I'll give you an example. If something happens to you in your life and it's bad, you got a car accident.
Yeah.
All right, well, that sucks and you're pissed off. But if you could take a step back and be like, all right, well, this sucks. I got a car accident. I'm going to have to spend whatever, $500 for the deductible. I'll be out of a car. I'm late to my job. Recognize that it sucks, but also accept that you intended this for yourself on some level. You don't have to know the reason for it, but it showed up in your life for a purpose, to teach you something so that you can learn something. The person who shows up in your life that does you wrong, sure, it sucks. You can curse them. But if you say, all right, this is here for a reason, I don't have to understand the reason, then you go from trying to fight life to being from a place from what's called equanimity, which is going with the flow. Like, all right, this sucks, but this might have shown up here for a purpose to help me, and I don't have to understand why. I just have to confidence that it is. That's what
it could
faith
be.
is.
You could turn it into a learning lesson.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do to change what has happened. Also,
Totally.
you got to just only go forward.
And I think
Yeah.
it's probably hard for a lot of people to look at it from the outside.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
look at the job that you might get rejected for, or you might get rejected to Harvard, but you end up starting your own company and becoming a trillionaire. So
Mhm.
you might look at the person that rejected you to Harvard being like, well, fuck, my life's over. I spent my whole career preparing myself for this. This is the ultimate failure. You just don't have the context of
Yeah.
why you needed this failure in order to be able to do the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What it's
Right?
going to lead you into.
Right. Think
Yeah.
about losing a really important game of football, and what you might learn about that. You made some critical mistakes. You're pounding grass at the time you lost.
Yeah.
But maybe you learned something and became a better athlete, which allowed you to do the next thing
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Learning
Right?
is, you learn the most when you fail.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so that it calls into question, what is failure? Is failure bad? Should we shun it? Should we
No.
be pissed? Or do we not be happy? Because honestly, you got to realize failure sucks, and not judge yourself for how you're feeling, but at least say, this is part of the path, my path to being successful and to have the things that I want, whatever they may be. And therefore, I'm going to embrace it and try to learn from it. It's like being in the early cold calling space. You got to know, great. Well, statistics say that I need to get 1 out of 100 people will say yes, and if I can get to that metric, I'll be successful. So I just got 1 no. I only need to get 99 more.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and,
No. Okay. Thank you. I only need 98 more.
Yeah.
Right?
and rejection can cause confidence, or
Totally.
to someone with a different mindset. You
Yeah.
can
It's really
Go
when
to
you
a
find out what
downfall.
you're made of.
Yeah.
You get rejected and you either dig deep and keep going, or you throw in the towel and get a complete victim mindset.
But also don't internalize that as something wrong with you, because you don't know what the other person's going through, or just that. But that's tough, right? Because we're human, and when somebody rejects you, I'll give you an example. So let's say you're in a grocery store and you're getting food, and there's a woman behind you, and she's got like a 3-year-old, and 3-year-old looks at him and says, "Look at that guy. His shirt is the ugliest thing I've ever seen." Which it kind of is, but how are you gonna? But how are you gonna feel about that if a 3-year-old says that to you? You're not gonna give a shit at all. You'll be like, "Oh, just a silly little 3-year-old."
Yeah.
2 hot chicks behind you, and you can hear the one telling her friend, "Look how stupid you look." Now all of a sudden, maybe not you, but most people, I'm gonna be like, I like this shirt, you know. And you're gonna go home and you'll be like, well, because the 3-year-old doesn't threaten the image of how I think about myself, versus maybe somebody else who's a peer might in my own mind. But that's a decision I'm making.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And if you have that confidence, you can tell her that shirt can be on the floor of your on the floor of your room later.
See, I'm in a complete. I would go home and be like, Claire, does this shirt really look? Claire would be like, yeah. I'd be like,
all right. That's all right.
yeah.
That's classic.
I'll move forward.
That's classic. Anyways, it's just some of those principles that I'm trying to apply to my life.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's super interesting.
Good.
I love that.
Yeah. All right. Well, if in 5 years everything in your life was wide open, what kind of life would you want to be living?
All right. Well, I can give you an answer that you won't like and viewers won't like, but and I'll give you 2 answers. One is the life I have is the life I want to be living, because that's the life I'm intended to have, even if it doesn't fit the picture of the life that I'm going to give you.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I think it's natural to have goals and have a plan of where you want to be, and we're knuckled down in this community. We've got 4 kids we raised here. We got 2 that are still in high school. We're going to be here for a while doing what we're doing. We just merged these businesses, so that's going to be that, and the barn is going to be a focus for the next few years. But ultimately, I hope to be breaking away and doing. I don't want to say breaking away, because it makes you think that I want to break away from Half Moon Bay. I don't. I love Half Moon Bay, but I need to get out and see some new things.
Yeah.
I need to get out and do some new things. I need to get out and get into some environments that are new to me, and to meet new people and see new ways of living and culture and new currency, and get in a car accident in a rental car in Nepal. I need that. I can feel I need it. And like the voice in the back of my head when I was in the tech world saying, hey, yo, you need to be doing something else, that's there now. And I know enough now that at some point it's going to get louder and I'm going to need to do that. Doesn't mean that I'm just going to go just fall off the deep end, but hopefully when the kids are in college and financially we're in a position we can take off and go do some of those things. Maybe spend a month here, maybe spend 2 months somewhere.
Yeah.
And it feels far away, because right now my life is complex. You've got,
moving parts.
You got kids, I got to pay this, you got to do that. There's like, all of a sudden you've got all these things you're dealing with, registration and health, and sometimes it gets so complex that I feel like I just want to walk off into the forest and go fuck off for 6 months.
Yeah.
And so that feeling sometimes is now it's getting a little louder. And I know I need to dig in, and this is what I'm going to do, this is what I want to do, but eventually I'd like to simplify things and just hang out on a beach at the grass skirt for a few months and just sit in the sand.
Yeah.
Well,
wait for a good swell.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, and you definitely find comfort in the unknown. That kind of goes back to that. You want to be a hunter, right? Looking for something that you haven't done, and like you said, you've touched every grain of sand in Half Moon Bay. So
yeah, and if I think about the things that gave me the most joy, I was in Costa Rica and I was sitting on the beach in the sunset, and there was this gnarly lightning storm. It was thundering everywhere and it was crazy, and people are running indoors, and I was just sitting there, and it was probably the best, like outside of having kids, like one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life. And like that doesn't cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
I just need to make the decision to, do I want to be in those environments more? How can I do that?
I love those situations as well.
You know?
Where it's it's not supposed to be pouring rain, but it starts fucking
Yeah.
dumping rain, and everybody's going inside, and you're just out. Clothes are soaked, but so stoked.
laughing,
Yeah.
laughing stoked.
Like, why is this even here? This
Oh.
is so awesome, though.
Like people probably thought I was some freak. I was out there, got my arms open, like I'm like the Rapture. And I'm just like, this is dope. And people are running inside, and then I went in the pool.
yeah.
And they come running out like, yeah, get out of the pool. It's a lightning storm.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh shit, maybe I got out of the pool.
Yeah, the metal railings.
but that's something that I will think about for 30 years.
Yeah.
And that's that. I don't need $1 million to have that experience.
Yeah.
And
So-
sometimes
that'll-
I feel the most.
All right, this
grounded.
gets back to
Yeah.
what are the things you want to do that you were taught to think that you want to do versus what are the things that you want to do,
Yeah.
Yeah.
experience. And that was one
Yeah.
of those things that's here,
Yeah.
right?
And it's funny because going into our next question here, it kind of goes full circle with your life. When you were younger, you had lived more of I don't know if it's the right term, but a gypsy type of lifestyle where you're moving around
Yeah.
and you're meeting, like that's what you want to get back to is what it sounds like, except it's not necessarily only in California. It's traveling the world and experiencing these new experiences and being in new places.
For sure.
So it's really cool.
It's the getting pulled over on a motorcycle by a cop in Nicaragua. It's those type of things that you'll go back 10 years and I'll be like, wow, remember when we did that?
yeah,
That was wild, or we were freaked out, or that's the stuff.
I couldn't even understand them.
This sounds, I don't want this to sound insensitive because I know things like hurricanes and tornadoes, they ruin people's lives, but I honestly am contemplating when there's a hurricane, like getting a plane ticket and going to that community,
Yeah,
and like rent a little house just because I want to be there. Like that.
experience.
Yeah, to me, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Not, again, losing your house isn't awesome, but that intensity, the weather, the nature, that type of stuff, just there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy. All right.
Yeah.
Well, what's that gut feeling that you got for the future? What's coming up next? And
I think, like I said, next few years, we're building businesses and things are going great. And we're going to continue doing that. And we'll travel a little bit here and there. And we'll continue to surf locally as much as we can and take care of my body and be a good parent and a good husband and a good community member. And most importantly, remind myself to be good to myself. That's all we're going to do in the next couple of years. Longer term, yeah, I'd like to be out in the bush a little more.
yeah. Well, before you're impossible to find, do you want to tell the people where to find you? Social media or business?
So
business
yeah,
names?
maybe when you grow up in this community your whole life, sometimes when I go shopping, I like to put a hood on. I want to get out of the store without having 40 conversations.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, we're in the business of real estate, so it's good that people know who I am and what I do. But I'm not here to. Actually, I don't want to do that. I'm not here to plug the business.
Cool.
The business is separate, and you know my name. If you want to get a hold of me, do that. To me, this podcast was not so much about, for me, business. It was just about having a good conversation with you guys, and I appreciate
It's
it.
been a great conversation.
Matt's a great friend, even better person. He's killing it in life, and yeah, take notes.
Yeah. And on that note, we're going to plug our podcast.
Yeah.
So please listen to Between Shifts. If you guys get a chance, like, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah, but
Thanks for the views.
can I say something about that though?
We don't need.
No.
It's on our own.
Yeah, I know. Please tune in. They're like, we already are fucking tuned in.
Yeah, we've
No,
been
no,
listening
no,
for
no,
a fucking
but-
hour and a half.
But
dude.
from a somebody who's not in your podcast, and I don't benefit from you guys being successful directly, but I think it's pretty cool what you guys are doing, because not only is it it's about getting into this community, which is rich with people that have stories. And I think that it's good to talk to business leaders. It's also good to talk to people that may not be business leaders and might be fourth generational farmer. And I think
Mhm.
people I am generally interested in those stories. And
Yep.
I generally want to tune in and hear about those things. And I think it will bring people together and add more substance to that which is already rich, which is kind of what this is all about, this
Yeah,
community.
you just named exactly why we even started this whole thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So hats off to you guys.
Yeah, we're trying to give a little more. Get this, like you said, the town's rich with characters, and to be able to give them a platform to somewhat tell their story, because you also have to think this is very on the surface
Yeah.
story wise. I mean, we get pretty deep.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but
But
at the end
people
of the
are
day.
interesting, and we have
Yeah.
interesting people here.
Yeah, we do. We have a really interesting little slice of the world over here. And we've all gotten to experience it growing up, but a lot of people don't get to experience it.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is a way where some people can get to experience that importance of Half Moon Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully, ultimately, Bay Area in general, we're able to show the uniqueness of this area.
Let people write an audiobook for a couple hours, and
Yeah.
really every single person has a story. So
Mhm.
we're excited
Yeah.
to get those out.
We're
And also,
Go for it.
don't be afraid to have people talk about their failures too, because it's success. But some of the most profound people I've ever met have seen some of the darkest times, and so sometimes maybe dive into that too. That's
Oh, yeah.
interesting, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's hard
So,
for Gavin to dig into
definitely.
that. For
I know.
he's never had a failure.
Jesus Christ.
You just don't see him because I
Oh,
work
yeah.
right through him.
Yeah,
Oh,
just a tall, handsome guy, football star.
God.
So you don't see the days when I was too skinny, too annoying, because I had to change.
Yeah.
I had to make it. I had to move forward.
Look at us now. Look at you now. Right on, guys. Well, this has been the Between Shifts podcast. Thanks for listening. We're signing off.
Yeah. See you later.
Cool.
Cheers.
Well, that was Matt Haugen. One hell of a character, even better businessman. Great episode.
Yeah.
You know, you might have realized, I hope that you guys realized, we missed David tonight. He forgot about a trip where he was going away this weekend. So poor David couldn't make the influential episode.
Oh, well.
Well, no, I
He'll be
missed
back for the
having
rest. Yeah.
David always has good questions, and that's the best thing about our show is that all three of our minds work in different ways. So it's cool to have an episode where we don't have David and we don't get to see his unique mind ask his questions.
Yeah, I
We
realized
miss
how dyslexic I am, dude. Every time I'm trying to get a thought out, I'm like, I can't just.
You ever have a
stumble over
dream
my
that you
words. I talk like a 4-year-old. English is
Well-
a hard language to learn.
Well, Matt's episode, some key takeaways. I have really experienced the pump track, and you can look at it at a physical aspect of it being a pump track and it's all biking and all blah 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 blah. But when you take a step back and really realize the bigger picture stuff, it's really cool how community based he is, because that takes a lot of work from the community, unless you want to do it on your own. And I don't think anybody wants to do that all on their own.
Well, and why would you want to, right?
Yeah.
To have the community there and help build it, to let the community enjoy it is so much more valuable than doing something for yourself and
For sure.
not getting to share it in the end.
Yeah, and building those connections along the way. Like Matt's really good. That goes back to his childhood, you know. His whole life he's worked to build connections. Whether that be when he's moving around as a young kid, or when he first came to Half Moon Bay and spent his first year of school in 6th grade here and had to build connections. He got lucky. He met John Lowndes, who was a hell of a guy and well connected in the community. But at the same time, Matt really had to work for the connections that he still has to this day. And I think a lot of people in Half Moon Bay, like if you grow up here, you're pretty well off on the connection standpoint, in the sense that you grow up around people, so you're ultimately going to talk to somebody and build that connection. But like when you move here at an awkward time, like middle school or like high school, it's way harder to build those connections that last a lifetime.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it
and
would
he
be
is-
for us.
Yeah, and he has such a great mindset, and might be like semi-manufactured, which is pretty cool too with the whole mind hacking thing. But the way he looks at life is just incredible too.
Yeah, I really like his outlook. I think that our minds work in a really similar way, in the sense of like your outlook is what your life is going to be. You are attracting, your mindset attracts the lifestyle that you're going to live. And to hear him be able to put that into words, my thoughts that I haven't been able to put into words, was really cool. I mean, I was sitting there not talking a lot of the time because I was just taking it in and trying to process everything that he was saying. And when you process it, it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. I would I would find it hard if I was in his position where I have that much drive to be able to form a partnership with someone in business wise, when you feel like you want to be at the wheel.
Yeah.
And he does such a good job of that too, which is incredible.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that episode was a lot of fun to record and pick Matt's brain. I've been wanting to do this type of thing with Matt for a while. It's funny because him and I have actually become pretty good friends over the past couple of months since I've been back from New Zealand. We've been hanging out, working together quite a bit, and to be able to have a conversation and like have you be there for like a conversation that we normally have outside of this.
Yeah.
And also like you guys at home being able to listen to how his mind works. It's really fascinating and it's really complex and it's fun to try to get a grasp on it. But when you get a grasp on it, you're like, oh, this guy's kind of onto something. Then he's like, yeah, you got to take your creatine. He didn't even get into that.
Oh, okay.
Big creatine guy.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really funny. Anyways, yeah, we're the Between Shifts podcast. That's our little recap. That was Matt Haugen. You get a second, check him out on the socials. Go by, let him buy or sell you a home or one of his agents. He's a great guy. And yeah, there's no bullshit in his life. So
Go get a burger at the barn.
yeah, burger at the barn.
Forking good.
Yeah.
You know.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. We'll see you next week. We have Wyatt Fields coming on. Breakwater Barbecue. Shoot. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Once again, we're brought to you by Bikeworks HMB, your one-stop shop for bike service, sales, and rentals in Half Moon Bay, California. Whether you're on the mountain, road, or low on battery, Bikeworks HMB has your back. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help support this podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at betweenshiftspod@gmail.com. The link will be in the description. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. GT signing off.